Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting the Marvel Crisis Protocol Cosmic Ghostrider. As you see, everything has been sprayed black and it's also in separate pieces to make it easier to paint. First thing we're going to do though is use some Abaddon black to make sure we caught all those places where the spray might have missed. Then for the inside of the wheel I'm going to use some Arkellian green and give it a once over. Next I'm going to give all the black a dry brush with some Corvus black, followed by another dry brush but this time with Eshin grey. I'm then going to paint any silver on the bike with some Iron Hand steel. And for the silver armour that Ghostrider is wearing, I'm going to use some Iron Warriors. Then the entire bike will receive a wash with some Nuln oil. Once that wash has dried, I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of Iron Warriors and Iron Hand Steel to highlight the Iron Warriors. And this will be followed by a further highlight of Iron Hand Steel. Then I'm going to use the Iron Hand Steel to relayer the Iron Hand Steel, avoiding any of the recesses. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Iron Hand Steel and Storm Host Silver for the first highlight. And then Storm Host Silver just by itself for the second. I'm then going to start painting any blue details on the miniature with some Temple Guard blue. And I'm also going to use it to paint the wheel as well. Then all the blue will get a wash with, and I apologise for this pronunciation, but Athematic blue. Don't worry, I'm going to write it on the screen. While that wash dries, I'm going to use some Karak stone to paint the muddy area that's being kicked up on the base. And I will paint the manhole cover with some Iron Hand steel. Next I'll use some Pallid Witch Flesh to dry brush the Karak stone. And then any concrete will be painted with Dawnstone. All that Dawnstone will be then edge highlighted with some grey sear. And then the rim of the base will be painted with some Abaddon black. Once the wash on the blue has dried, we're going to relayer the Temple Guard blue, making sure we avoid any of the recesses. We're also going to dry brush it onto the wheel. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Temple Guard blue and Barahoth blue. Once again, don't forget to dry brush it onto the wheel. Then it's going to be Barahoth blue just by itself. Once again, make sure you dry brush the wheel. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Barahoth blue and matte white. This also counts as the next highlight for the vehicle as well. Then the next highlight will be the same mix but at a 70-30 ratio. This will also be the final highlight on most of the blue on the bike except the lights. Once again we're going to use a mix of Barahoth blue and matte white, but this time it's going to be at a 90-10 ratio. And this is just used for the lights on the bike. Next we're going to use some matte white just by itself for the final dry brush. And as a small dot in the centre of all the lights. Then I'm going to use some Avalanche Sunset to paint any of the areas on Ghostrider that will eventually be flame. That includes the flame coming out of the back of the bike, the chains, and Ghostrider's head. All of these areas will then receive a wash with some Cassandori yellow. After the wash is dried, we're going to use a 50-50 mix of Avalanche Sunset and Dawn Yellow just at the base of all of the flames. And to highlight Ghostrider's face. And then lastly, to start highlighting the chain. We're then going to use Dawn Yellow just by itself, but I'm going to completely miss this shot as I forgot where the camera was temporarily. And then this will be followed by a 50-50 mix of matte white and Dawn Yellow for the final highlight. This will also be the final highlight on the face. Don't worry about the chains too much as they're already as highlighted as they need to be. For the other ends of the flames, we're going to use a 50-50 mix of Avalanche Sunset and Fire Dragon Bright. We want to go about halfway through, and we're slowly going to get closer to the end as we progress with the colours. This will be followed by Fire Dragon Bright just by itself. This is then followed by a 50-50 mix of Fire Dragon Bright and Troll Slayer Orange. Then we're going to use Wild Rider Red just by itself. Then finally Evil Sun Scarlet at the very tips and the very points. To paint his shoulder pads, we're going to use Mephiston Red. Followed by a 50-50 mix of Mephiston Red and Evil Sun Scarlet. And then lastly, Evil Sun Scarlet just by itself on the very tips. For his handlebars, first we're going to use some Grey Seer. Then a 50-50 mix of Grey Seer and Matte White. So he's almost finished, just make sure you glue him back together. I've used super glue for a slightly stronger bond. And then lastly, wash his base with some watered down Agrax Earthshade. And there he is, that's Ghostrider completely finished. I have to say, even though he was never really truly on my radar, I'm very glad I picked this guy up, because he was quite a lot of fun to paint in the end. Can't really say how often I'm actually going to use him on the battlefield, but it was this painting experience that I enjoyed the most. He's also pretty quick to paint as well, rocking in at round about 3 hours in total. And something I always enjoy painting is flames and things on the back of motorcycles. I don't do any light source stuff, basically, because sometimes I think I ruin the models with it, so I just leave it here. If you enjoyed the video and you used it as a guide, I really do hope it helped. And if you want to see more, there's plenty more Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff on the channel, plus Marvel Zombies, Star Wars Shatterpoint, some Warhammer 40,000, and some Warhammer the Old World as well. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye for now.